It's 11:47 p.m. You're sitting on the floor surrounded by wooden panels, screws, a wrench, and an instruction sheet that seems to be missing. Step 7. You've been at this for 2 hours. Your back hurts. You've reassembled the same part 3 times. And then, finally, it clicks into place. You stand up. You step back. You look at the shelf you just built. It's slightly crooked. One panel doesn't sit perfectly flush. A professional would have done it in 20 minutes, and it would have been flawless. And yet, something about this shelf feels different from every other piece of furniture in the room. You don't just own it, you love it. That feeling has a name, and once you understand what's behind it, you'll start seeing it quietly running in the background of almost every decision you make. In 2011, 3 researchers at Harvard Business School decided to study something that felt almost too simple to be worth studying. Michael Norton, Daniel Mochon, and Dan Ariely gave participants flat-pack IKEA boxes to assemble. When finished, they asked, "How much would you pay for this?" Then they showed a separate group the same boxes, already assembled, and asked the same question. The people who had built the boxes themselves were willing to pay significantly more for them than those who had simply received a finished product. Around 63% more on average. Even when their versions were objectively worse. Even when they knew it. The researchers called it the IKEA Effect. The tendency to place disproportionately high value on things we have created ourselves. Not because of their quality, but because of the effort we put into them. And it didn't stop at furniture. Norton, Mochon, and Ariely ran the same experiment with origami. Participants folded simple origami figures. Frogs, cranes, basic shapes. None of them were origami experts. The results were objectively mediocre. Then the researchers asked, "How much would you pay for your own figure? How much would you pay for an expert's figure?" The participants consistently valued their own amateur creations almost as highly as the expert work. They also assumed wrongly that outside observers would share their enthusiasm. They didn't. Outside observers rated the amateur origami as worth significantly less. The builders couldn't see the gap. Their effort had blinded them to the quality difference. The effect held across different tasks, different materials, different levels of complexity. Lego sets, customized products, software configurations. Anytime participants were allowed to finish what they started, they valued the result more. The key word is finish. Because the effect only works when the task is completed. In one version of the experiment, researchers took apart the participants' creations before asking for evaluation. The effect vanished. Incomplete labor produced no extra love. It's not the effort alone that creates value. It's the effort plus the sense of completion. So what is actually going on inside the brain when we build something? 3 mechanisms seem to be working together. First, effort justification. This is one of the oldest findings in social psychology. When we invest effort in something, we are motivated unconsciously to believe the result was worth it. To think otherwise would mean admitting we wasted our time. And the brain strongly resists that conclusion. Leon Festinger called the underlying mechanism cognitive dissonance, the discomfort of holding 2 conflicting beliefs simultaneously. I worked hard on this, and this isn't very good, cannot both be true without causing psychological pain. So one of them quietly gets adjusted. Usually the second one. Second, psychological ownership. Research on the endowment effect shows that we value things more once we feel they belong to us. The act of building something creates an even stronger sense of ownership than simply buying it. You didn't just acquire this object, you produced it. Your decisions are embedded in it. It is, in a real sense, a physical extension of your choices. Third, competence and identity. Finishing something you built yourself produces a specific kind of satisfaction. The feeling of being capable, of having done something real in the world. That feeling attaches itself to the object. Every time you look at the shelf, you're not just seeing wood and screws. You're seeing evidence of your own competence. The IKEA effect is not just an academic curiosity. It is a design principle that some of the most valuable companies in the world have built into their products. IKEA itself, obviously, built an entire business model around it. Flat pack furniture is cheaper to ship and store. But the assembly process turns a commodity product into something personal. Something the customer has invested in. Something they are statistically less likely to return. Build-A-Bear understood this intuitively decades before the research confirmed it. A stuffed animal you stuff and dress yourself becomes infinitely more valuable than one that arrives finished. Video games use it constantly. Every RPG that lets you customize your character, craft your weapons, build your base, is running the IKEA effect deliberately. The hours you pour into constructing your virtual world make you value the game itself more, and make it harder to stop playing. Dating apps use a subtler version. The more messages you send, the more profile details you fill in, the more time you invest, the more attached you become to the platform. Not because it's better, because you've built something inside it. AI tools are now doing the same thing. Systems that ask you to customize, train, and personalize them are creating IKEA effects at scale. Your version of the tool feels more valuable than anyone else's, because you helped create it. The IKEA effect is not always harmless. The same mechanism that makes you love your crooked shelf can make you defend a bad business plan you've spent months building. It can make you stay in a project that should have been abandoned. It can make you dismiss feedback from people who can see your work more clearly than you can. Research shows that the IKEA effect is strongest precisely when outside observers are most critical. The gap between how the builder sees the work and how everyone else sees it grows larger as the builder's effort increases. More work, more love, more blindness. This pattern shows up in entrepreneurs who can't let go of failing startups they built from scratch. Parents who believe their child is more talented than the evidence suggests. Writers who can't cut paragraphs they've labored over for hours. Managers who overvalue strategies they designed themselves. The question is not whether you're susceptible to the IKEA effect. You are. Everyone is. The question is, what have you built that you're overvaluing right now? What have you put so much effort into that you can no longer see it clearly? The IKEA effect is not a flaw to be corrected. It's a feature to be understood and used. If you want someone to care about something, let them build part of it. Teachers who understand this don't just deliver information. They design problems students have to construct answers to. The knowledge you build yourself sticks differently than the knowledge you receive. Therapists use a version of this when they guide clients toward their own conclusions rather than stating them directly. Insights you arrive at yourself feel more true and last longer than insights handed to you. Leaders who want genuine team commitment don't just announce strategies. They create processes where the team builds the strategy together. People defend what they helped create. People abandon what was handed to them. The IKEA effect tells you something fundamental about motivation. Effort is not just the cost of getting something. It is part of what makes the thing worth having. A result that comes too easily often feels less valuable than a result that made you work. Not because the easy one is objectively worse, but because you left less of yourself in it. Think about the things in your life you love most. A skill you've spent years developing. A relationship you've worked at through difficult periods. A project that took longer than you planned and cost more than you expected. Now think about whether you'd love those things as much if they had arrived fully formed, with no effort required. The honest answer for most people is no. We don't just want good outcomes. We want to have earned them. We want the story of how we got there to be one we participated in. The IKEA effect is a bias, in the technical sense. It distorts our judgment. It makes us overvalue our own creations and undervalue what others have built. But underneath the bias is something that isn't a mistake at all. The deep human need to make things. To leave a mark. To look at something in the world and say, I built that. The crooked shelf is not just a shelf. It's evidence that you were here. That you did something. That the hours you spent on the floor at midnight left a trace in the physical world. That's not irrational. That might be the most human thing there is. We've spent this episode talking about things you've built. Shelves, projects, pieces of yourself poured into objects. And why the effort you put in makes you love the result, even when it's objectively flawed. Now here's a question that breaks the same logic completely. What if there was a moment before anything existed to build? Before matter, before energy, before space itself. Before time had anywhere to go. Not emptiness, not darkness. Something physicists struggle to name, because every word we have for nothing still implies a somewhere that contains it. We understand the universe remarkably well, right down to fractions of a second after it was born. But the second before? The moment at the singularity? The question of what, if anything, existed prior. That is where physics stops, where the equations break, where even the best minds in science look at each other and say, we don't know. And we don't know turns out to be one of the most interesting places science has ever been. Because the answers people have proposed, from quantum fluctuations in a vacuum, to a universe that bounces and collapses in infinite cycles, to the idea that time itself didn't exist before the bang and the question is therefore meaningless. Each one of them rewrites something fundamental about what you are, where you came from, and whether the thing you just built on your living room floor is part of a story with a beginning, or part of something that never had one. That is next.